Can you talk about, I'm fascinated by what it takes. You just mentioned physically to prepare for a mission like that, but how do you get trained mentally? Like how can you prepare for uncertainty and not knowing what's going to happen at all?
Well, first off, these morons, and I say that with great love, our next level, they're always looking, the Green Berets are always looking to improve their performance. So before it was cool to, read self-actualization books and think about mental performance, Think Fast and Slow, or whatever that book is. I'm going to read that. I started it, but man, that's a long book. I got through this introduction. You know the one I'm talking about.
Oh, I know.
They're always talking about, and that's like what makes special forces special. And we came to the decision, it's not equipment. It's not always training, but it's always looking for the next edge. So they'd identified that way before it was cool. Like mental performance is critical, but here's how it starts. It's pretty brutal. It starts with like, I want to be a Green Beret because I don't want to be, I want to have some autonomy. I want to have some authority. I want to have some creativity. So I want to leave the big military that doesn't always embrace it. Not sometimes it does, but typically not. And then they see like these, Green Berets that, get to wear civilian clothes and drive civilian cars and not have to get yelled at and have to pick up cigarette butts in the courtyard, et cetera, what the military typically does a lot of times. So these people volunteer and they go to this thing called Special Forces Assessment and Selection. It's a 3-week Rube Goldberg insanity where you go in there and you've been brought up in the military where you're told what to do every single moment of the day. You will be at this place at 6:00, 0600. You will be in this uniform. You will do exactly this. You will walk in formation. And then you end up with this at this Camp McCall at Fort Bragg. You show up there. They tell you you will have these are the required items. These are the things you can't bring. And then you show up there and you dump all your stuff out and the sergeant looks at it and makes sure you have everything. And here's the crazy thing. You can, like, I took like 2 cartons of cigarettes and because it wasn't on the list of things you can't take. So I'm like,
oh no,
you take some cigarettes because in these training events, cigarettes are worth food. It's kind of like jail time. So the guy's like, the NCO's like, haven't seen that. You smoke a lot. And I'm like, nope, starting now. And he just started laughing. He goes, well, usually people try to stop smoking here. I haven't seen that. And right there, like I'm in a weird place, right? The guy actually laughed. So you're down there and everybody wants detailed instructions. They have a board and they're like, what do we do, Sergeant? What are we doing tomorrow? Take your instructions from the board. There's a board and it'll say 0600, this uniform, 35-pound rucksack. You're like, ooh, okay. No other instructions than that. You show up at 0600, you got your uniform, you got your 35-pound rucksack, and the sergeant gets up and goes, the next selection event is you will move under your own power overland for a set distance. You're like, okay, what else? How long we going? How fast are we supposed to go? Because there's always standards in the Army, like you will do at this. And you're kind of shocked and you're waiting. So of course somebody's like, Sergeant, how far are we going? A set distance. Like, what the heck did we get into? Then, hey, Sergeant, how much time do we have? Do the best you can. So it always became read the board, move overland, and do the best you can. So that takes that some people would collapse because they're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. But the people that thrive in environments where it is flexible and not predictable, just thrive there. And so that's how they break it out, is just you're put in this situation where if you're not an independent operator, you will either fail or you'll self-select and drop out. And so people are just constantly dropping out. And the good people, great people, and they're like, I can't do this. I mean, this is ridiculous. I need somebody to tell me what the hell to do every day, which is fine. We need that in the Army too. So that's really that's the indoctrination. And then you go through a year-long training program where once you're through that, and it's really a gut check. At the end of the day, it's like they're looking for people that won't quit. And you hit a point in those things where you just become angry. and you're like, I'm not going to quit. I'll die first. You hear Navy SEAL teams in Hell Week, I love watching the Discovery Channel where they do the Hell Week thing. And I love listening to the instructors when they go, yep, we know almost to the hour when the last person will quit.
Wow.
And then at that point, we've broken them all down. And at that point, these people aren't going to quit. The only way they're not going to quit. They're going to be disabled, permanently disabled, or they're going to die. And at that point, I love that part with the SEAL teams where they go, and now we're going to rebuild them. We're going to build them in our image. And the same thing happens in Special Forces assessment and selection. You hit a point where you're just so doggone angry. You're like, hell with it. I'm not quitting. I don't care. They can do anything to me. I will not quit. That's what you want in a Green Beret.
And so, Chris, when you think about kind of the team dynamics and communication specifically, right? If you really think of what makes these great teams, is each individual person has a certain amount of strength, both physically and mentally. They can shoot, move, and communicate at a very, very high level of proficiency, but also they have great ability to work within a team. And so it's not just about the individual strength, it's actually their ability and their cohesiveness with the rest of the team. And some of that is they may be naturally good at it, but also there's just the constant repetition and practice and kind of training that goes into it. But then you actually add another level of complexity, which is you have a team on the ground, and that team on the ground is probably better equipped than most on a battlefield, both with the physical gear that they have, but also all of the support, whether it's air support, medical support, and then also kind of the command and control that they can communicate with. And so how did you think about the idea of, at the absolute atomic level of the individual soldier, we have the best of the best on the ground. And then when they're together on a team, we need them to be able to work together, but then also we need them to be able to communicate with people who are not there on the ground and be able to do that effectively so that we can help them. And so when you get through those multiple levels of complexity, are there certain lessons that you've learned over the years or takeaways that you have that you say, look, whether it's, on the battlefield or inside a corporation, or if you're the founder of a company, like these are the things that you learned from a leadership perspective to kind of integrate across those different perspectives?
Wow, that's a heck of a question. That's a big one. I'll take it by chunks. I'll try to take it by chunks. Every situation's different. That's the key thing. Like, here's where I love to go, and this is why I love Special Forces. Hyper decentralized, trust your people, give them broad mission type guidance, give them a left and a right limit, and tell them, hey, listen, I trust you. You can bother me anytime. You can come and ask questions anytime you want. But you're smarter than I am. Just go do it. And this is the end state we want. And they'll create magic. And I could sit there and I could come up with my plan and think, well, I'm a college graduate. I've got a master's degree, and I'm pretty, I got this. And if you just give them some leeway and just tell them which direction to go and trust them and support them, they'll come up with something 10 times better. But that's not always the case, because sometimes you do need to be hyper micromanage on them. But that would be because every situation is different. There might be a time where they're based on the political sensitivities that you really have to go into the details. I always felt, though, if you told them the political sensitivities, they come up with the right answer. So assessment and selection there's also a week where it's all about teamwork. And I talked about Rube Goldberg. You'll show up, you got your 12-man A team, men at the time, like I said. Now, thank God, we have women in there. And there's a Jeep, old Jeep, World War II style Jeep, missing a wheel. They're like, you got to move this Jeep. The mission is this Jeep is critical. It has critical supplies in it. You have to move it back to the repair facility. And there'll be some poles and stuff. And you're the team leader now. And you're like, what the hell do I do with this? But of course there's somebody, well, I had this problem when I was in Montana, when I was growing up. And that's the leadership test is, are you going to tell everybody what to do? Or are you going to say, guys, what do we do? So they'll come up with this Rube Goldberg thing, and then it's physical fitness. It just kills you. But the thing you learn too is the teamwork part that you brought up, Anthony, is who can work in a team. Who can take like weird orders? Who's willing to step up when somebody's not feeling well? And then you have this ruthless thing called the peer review. Oh my gosh. So you have to vote 1 to 12 who's the best and who's the worst. And if you're 12, you're probably not going to the next phase. So there's this ruthless meritocracy and culling process. And you just don't get to say like, oh, I don't like Jim. It's like, why don't you like Jim? Jim failed on this event. We were down and out and he quit. So that's how that works. Now, oh my gosh, high functioning teams, I'm just still amazed, still learn every day, want to learn more. And I think I really, my absolute in my essence is like, give people their freedom and give them their expectation, but get out of their way. As long, the key thing, don't do anything illegal, immoral, or unethical. Other than that, everything's up for negotiation. So I felt that was the best thing, but so often it's uncomfortable when you're in a new situation and maybe it's a new product line or you're trying to get into a new business space. And so your instinct as a boss is like, I'm gonna hold on tighter. The thing I had a great boss one time, Ken Tovo, was like, no, at that point, decentralize more. Decentralize till it's uncomfortable. And you're like, oh, geez. I think that hasn't let me down, but you got to be invested in your people because they will screw up sometimes. And of course, in combat, that comes down to people getting injured or killed. But unfortunately, that's the way you learn.